In this latest edition of A View from the Bridge, I'm back in Portsmouth to meet Vice Admiral Paul Beattie, the Second Sea Lord. He's part of the senior leadership team driving the change and transformation necessary to prepare the Royal Navy for warfighting within 3 years. Can that be done, and within a tight defence budget? What does the hybrid Navy amount to? And what is expected of the men and women in the front line? Just some of the questions for the Admiral.
Ship company, stand up, ease.
Second Sea Lord, welcome to A View from the Bridge. Thank you for your time today. You're 6 months into the job now. How's it going?
Well, I'm enjoying it, Stephen. I mean, it's been a remarkable privilege to take over this post at a sort of really interesting and really challenging time. And I think I'm really enjoying it. I think we've developed, published and iterated a really ambitious plan in Warfighting 29. The big transitions that we've got, that's sort of the biggest change in the Navy in over 50 years. I think we have a genuinely sort of exciting proposition that we're now delivering at pace, and it really does feel like a different Navy, and we've made a difference really quickly. But I think there's other bits that have sort of surprised me. There are other successes that maybe just don't get that same sort of level of interest and coverage. We've recently been, made the case and won the funding for big redevelopments in Faslane, Rosyth, Devonport, and here in Portsmouth. And, that's come as a slight surprise to me. I mean, it's great news, but actually a significant investment that means it's not just buying those new capabilities, it's also building the infrastructure to make sure that we have support around them.
Now, I mean, talking about those new capabilities, I guess we're on one of those today, the Patrick Blackett. What does this asset represent?
This is a real sort of demonstration of doing differently. Something that we bought as a commercial platform that we delivered quickly into service with a very small crew in order to allow us to experiment, to learn by doing, and to drive change into the service. And this platform has already demonstrated autonomy, and I think that's really important and very different to how we'd operate in the past.
Now, over the last few months, I mean, there's been a lot of media coverage about the state of UK armed forces, the state of the Navy. I mean, you're at the top of the shop. What is the reality? How is the Royal Navy now?
We've got 3 big, ambitious change programs underway. In Warfighting 29, how do we fight what we have better today? How do we improve those fourth generation ratios? How do we make support better? How do we get our platforms more ready and ready for war? And that is principally about support and training. But what we need to be really realistic about is, I would say the demand signal in the Navy is probably the highest it's been for a generation, and that we're at the point of that transition where actually the number of frigates and destroyers that we have available is pretty limited. So that puts significant pressure on our people to drive those change. And I think we're really lucky that we have remarkable people, resilient people that can do that and drive that forward.
Now, last November, we were talking to the Navy about the generational change that is necessary, the reform, the transformation, in effect doing more with arguably the same or even less resource. We're now 6 months on from that. I mean, is that on plan?
That's on plan. I think I think it's doing things differently. It's not doing more with less or more with the same. It's doing things differently. We've driven 1 million hours of activity out of people's lives to make their working lived experience better, to remove some of the drudgery so they can focus on what the right things to do. And I think we really have focused that effort on Warfighting 29 in the things that are important to try and make people's lives better and different. That becomes our focus, and I think will continue to be our focus.
I mean, anybody who has an interest in the armed forces, it is aware of the financial pressure, and obviously that's a political debate that we can't get into. But, the reality for you now in 2026, the ambition to get to a war-fighting ready Navy by 2029, it's not a huge amount of time.
Indeed.
Do you have what it takes to deliver on that promise? I mean, it's a bold promise.
I think when we developed that plan, both the first time round and the iteration, it was ambitious, but we always checked whether it was deliverable. And I think the key is when you look at the things that we're trying to do in the near term, a lot of them are about behaviors and processes and approaches and how we do business. They're not big capital expenditure. And I think the area that is the big capital expenditure is hybrid Navy. Now, it's interesting that in hybrid Navy, it's an area where you really can start small and scale quickly. And therefore, you can spend relatively small amounts of money to deliver the capability, and prove you can do things differently, and then scale those when the resource becomes available. There is still the money there. We just have to make the case that those are the right things to invest in and that they will make the difference.
Okay. Warfighting by 2029, the sort of implication of that is we have to wait until 2029 before you can do anything. But are you able and ready to fight tonight if needed?
I think we're able and ready to operate at a high level tonight, and the Straits of Hormuz, the Middle East tasks, and the Cyprus piece have shown that. You know, our people are capable, highly professional, and adaptable. You know, and although we got a lot of challenge on Dragon, I still think it's a remarkable story that we turned a ship that was in a maintenance dock over there and got her to sea in under 2 weeks and forward deployed. And we didn't just deploy her and think, we'll get her there and then we'll bring her back. We deployed her knowing that she was going to be there for a pretty lengthy period of time.
I guess the untold story there is just the commitment of your people.
It is, yeah.
How they got that ship off the wall in that amount of time is a massive commitment.
I think as I say, this challenge of high demand signal and a transition means that the deployments and the predictability is not there at the moment. You know, we need to do deployments at relatively short notice, and some of those deployments are going to be quite long in duration. Our people have responded really well to that. People are remarkable. I think that sort of level of deployment and their ability to just demonstrate their professionalism of the nation needs us to respond, we will respond. I think we will always respond. And that's why I think the Dragon thing is something we should actually be proud of rather than something that we should find embarrassing.
Now, I mean, the buzzword around the dockyard is hybrid navy, uncrewed, autonomous. I mean, some of those assets are sitting around us in this basin. But what does that actually mean for your people? And what is that future force? What is that going to look like?
This is definitely a learn by doing. And not just learn from doing ourselves, also with our key international partners. I've spent quite a lot of time over the last 6 months, you know, understanding what Australia is doing, understand what the US are doing, understand what the Norwegians and the Dutch are doing. We're all actually in a similar sort of space in terms of this is the future, what does it mean, and how do we drive that forward? It's going to have to be different almost from the outset. But I think the key is that we just need to understand that hybrid navy in every environment is about strengthening the capability that we have in crewed platforms. This is about more lethality, more mass, more presence, in order to make those very expensive assets, the very capable assets that are coming from the Clyde and the Rosyth and from Barrow, even more capable than they are today. Particularly the uncrewed surface vessels you see here in Portsmouth, our ability to train people to operate those, find people that are keen volunteers, and then get them to go and do that. I mean, I think it's been remarkable, and you can see they enjoy it. I mean, it's a really interesting and exciting opportunity.
Now, I think one of the promises that you made to colleagues across the Royal Navy is you'd cut out bureaucracy. I mean, you'd make things simpler, allow people to just really get on with the jobs that they need to do. I mean, that was all compelling. I mean, 6 months on, minimum viable bureaucracy. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but I mean, have you actually cut the red tape? We've
cut 1 million hours away. You know, we really have driven that through. And I think, you know, if you go to Navy Command headquarters now, far fewer meetings than ever were before, far more being done than being talked about. I think we genuinely feel now like an organization that's about delivery. It's about making a difference on the front line. It's not a bureaucracy talking to itself.
So how have you changed the way that you work?
I just think it is just challenging all those processes. You know, why did we do that? What's the reason? And actually, I would say, in at least 30% of the cases, they're not needed. You know, the reason those things were established is historic, or some incident happened a long time ago, and we just need to have a slightly greater risk appetite that those things are unnecessary.
One of the things that hasn't changed is the pressure on people, and notably with some of these very long deployments, especially in the submarine service.
Yeah.
I know we can't talk about the detail of what happens in SSBNs and so forth, but these very long deployments must take a massive toll, especially on the submarine community. Is that going to change anytime soon?
The dreadnought transition provides us the opportunity to do things differently. I think we just got to be realistic about how quickly those dreadnoughts arrive, and the transition into service means that for a while, for a significant period, we will still
10 years away. So,
well, I mean, the first one isn't 10 years away. The first one's only a few years away. But I think it will be literally 10 years before we are in a dreadnought SSBN fleet, not a VIVO fleet. We're going to have to do everything we can, not only to work out how do we do those patrols and make sure that our people are cared and protected, we've got to look after them. I think we know that. I think there's significant focus on how do we make the life of submariners better, particularly in Faslane. What can we do in Faslane to make the lived experience when they're not on patrol far, far better than it is today? And I think if you go up to Faslane, you see the investment that's gone up there, new training school, new accommodation, new facilities, to make sure that those submariners understand what they do is remarkable. It is the most important defence task and the most important thing that we, the Navy, do for the nation. We understand that.
What's your message to the families? I mean, often forgotten in this. I mean, if 200 plus day patrols with no contact with home is in effect the new norm, how are families supposed to respond to that?
I mean, I just got to thank the families for what they do, for the support they provide. I've done a few medal presentations up in Faslane and made that point, and it's good the families come to see that, to see what their husband, their wife, their son, their daughter does. Like most people in the Navy, the submariners are very humble people. They don't, I think sometimes they're doing absolutely remarkable and incredible things. I think sometimes for them, that is just a norm. I need to keep reminding them that these are incredible things, and we need to recognize that and recognize the challenge and the difficulties and what the families are giving up in order to make sure that we continue to live.
I mean, those day zero homecomings are presumably really poignant. I mean, how important is it that the Prime Minister and Secretary of State actually, are in the boat and giving personal thanks?
Really important. I think every time you take a senior politician up to Faslane, whether it's for a day zero or just to see an SSBN and the crew, they walk away absolutely astonished by the level of professionalism and the level of commitment. I don't know what they expected before they went up there, but they always come away just going, that is remarkable. What your people do is amazing. And I think it's really important that they go and actually recognise and tell the people that. I think it's great the Prime Minister went up and saw it for himself.
What are the role of the Armed Forces charities and notably, the Royal Navy, Royal Marines charity, RNRMC, for whom we're partly having this conversation today? What more can they do? I mean, given some of the pressures that you've just talked about, how we put our arms around, families and veterans as well. Any more? What's your ask?
All the charities, big and small, do a remarkable effort to support our people and their beneficiaries. I met with them all, only about 3 weeks ago here in Portsmouth, to discuss it is clearly going to be an increase in need as we move forward. And I think particularly when you're talking about, getting ready for combat operations, the charity's role in support of our families and our veterans in that space increases markedly. They all understand that. They all understand that we need to do things differently to make sure that as we move into the future, they can continue to support our people as well as today, if not better. And what we're trying to do is to make it much easier for, as you say, service personnel, veterans and their families to be able to approach the right charity and get the right support as quickly as possible. And I'm confident we'll achieve it.
Now, as we reflected, you're 6 months into this job, but you had actually left the Navy and had come back to do this. I mean, was that a surprise to be asked to do it?
It was a surprise to me. I mean, I was surprised, but I was also honoured to be asked to come back. And as I talk about the opportunity that we have here to make a difference, feels pretty unique in terms of timing, and therefore I jumped at the opportunity to come back and to serve and to try and drive forward those changes on behalf of the First Sea Lord.
Do you see yourself as the disruptor in chief? Is that the role of a modern Second Sea Lord?
I think I would see myself as the sort of transformation chief. I don't think I'm there to disrupt. I think in the past we've probably been guilty of being a little bit too, we're the Navy, this is how business is done. I think the world is moving so quickly that you need to be able to find the best practice and be able to adopt that best practice quickly. I think that's probably I wouldn't call that challenge or disruption, but I think that's the bit that I perhaps bring that others wouldn't.
I know you're just getting going, but if we can fast forward and just think about what you would want your legacy to be in this role.
Well, I think it's probably three things. It's deliver Warfighting 29. It is make sure that our people and our systems are ready for that transition that is coming in the very early 2030s. And it's turn hybrid Navy from what was an idea in a PowerPoint slide to platforms and reality in combat. If I can do those three things, I'll leave very proud.
Now, just finally, because I know you have a busy schedule, you've just come back from the United States,
Yeah.
all eyes on the US at the moment. Where do we sit? Where does the Royal Navy sit with one of our foremost allies?
I think it will always be our foremost ally. I mean, I spent 3 years out there, so I'm probably a little bit biased. But I think if you look at the breadth of the relationship with the US Navy and US Marine Corps, we don't have a comparator. We are doing more with the French. We will do more with the Norwegians. The Australians are a key partner. The Dutch are a key partner. We have many European nations that we have to work with. But the thing with the US relationship is it goes all the way from their autonomous vessels to the nuclear deterrent. We don't have that level of breadth anywhere else.
Okay. And finally, as we wrap this up, are you a glass half full, glass half empty? That there are many in the service and who look at defence right now who are very concerned and are probably glass half empty. But you appear to have a slightly different outlook.
I think my reputation has always been a realist. Maybe an optimistic realist, but always been a realist. I'm not a visionary. I'm not a, we'll achieve this within 12 months. I see what we need to do and then look at the practicalities of that. And I think I'm the realist. So probably glass half foolish.
We'll settle for that. Second Sea Lord, thank you very much.
Thank you.